portion will be taught by Professor Samantha and half of it would be taught by me. I would be focusing on process dynamics part and he would be focusing on process control. Okay, I would be recording the lectures and the digital notebook which you can see here. Unlike the maths class, this time I will be saving it and I'll be also sharing the processed one with you over the email, or we'll find a suitable mechanism to share it with you. But I would very sincerely suggest you to attend the lectures and get the doubts clarified here itself and not leave any doubts to later part. Okay, so feel free to interrupt and ask questions when we are progressing. That should not be a problem. I will also be recording the lectures, so let's take a couple of minutes to start recording it. Okay, so it's somebody has already started recording, so not a problem. Okay, so now the question is, why are we studying process dynamics and control together? In other words, when process dynamics is a vast subject in itself, equally vast is process control. So what is the requirement for us to study these two subjects together? Which means that between process dynamics and process control, there must be some junction, or one of these studies might be helping the other, or the other might be helping the first one, or maybe both help each other. And the answer to all of these questions is yes. Process dynamics and control are very intricately involved in each other's study, and therefore we study each other, we study both of them together in the same course. Why or how is the question. So let me clarify before we jump into process dynamics. Let's first try to understand. So in the center of our universe is what we will call as process control. Okay, so we have here process control. Okay, and the question is, why do we require process control? Okay, so there can be several reasons for employing process control. And again, I can put process in bracket because you have general control theory, which is even vaster field of study. We would be focusing on process control, which means how to implement control on process or chemical industries. Okay, so there are two primary reasons why process control is implemented in industries. The first reason is process demand. Okay, so what is the meaning of process demand? So let's take an example of Haber-Bosch process. Okay, so our process is Bosch Haber or Haber-Bosch process. And if you remember, this process is used for synthesis of ammonia from the elements. That means from N2 and H2. Right? Now the question is that, and Haber-Bosch, by the way, got the Nobel Prize for developing this process because fixing of nitrogen or any reaction which involves nitrogen and its conversion to its product has been typically extremely difficult. And Haber, who was a chemist, and Bosch was an engineer who was specialized in high pressure processes. They together developed this process, and what they observed is that this process requires of the order of 500 bar pressure and 650 degree centigrade temperature, right? Plus, and this is just not that, plus a catalyst. Okay, So typically such harsh conditions are very rare to be seen in processes which involve catalysts, but fixation of nitrogen is so difficult that even if you employ the catalyst which was developed by Haber, you still require 500 bar pressure and nearly 650 degrees centigrade temperature. So now anything which is not at room temperature and anything which is not at atmospheric pressure, if it needs to be carried out, you need special measures to maintain temperature and pressure to that level. Okay, and it is not necessarily or only true for high temperature, high pressure processes. It is true for cryogenic processes also, which take place at sub room temperatures, which means if you want to elevate the temperature to certain value, or if you want to reduce the temperature to a certain value, you need process control, and this is the process demand. So unless you implement process control, you cannot maintain high temperature or you cannot maintain low temperature. Similarly, if you want to carry out a high pressure process, or if you want to carry out a process in vacuum, again, you cannot maintain the system at that condition or at that state unless you employ process control. So this is the process demand. Unless you maintain this using some mechanism which we call as control algorithm, you cannot achieve this. First thing. Second thing, which is very important, is process safety. Okay. Now you imagine that you have a reactor which is working at 650 degrees centigrade, which is fairly high temperature, but it is extremely high pressure. If you see pressure is extremely high. So now you do not want your reactor to blast, right? So you must do something such that your pressure does not exceed the tolerable limit. This whole process will be taking place in we I mean the chemical engineering students know it will be typically taking place in a reactor which would be packed with a catalyst. This would be packed with a catalyst, and then what's going to happen is, so you will have the catalyst here everywhere, and then you will be sending in the gas, the reactants, you'll be sending out the products, right? So these are reactants, these are products, and this is the catalyst, right? Now this vessel, which is called the reactor, will have some thickness, and the thickness will depend upon the pressure that you need to employ and the material of construction of your vessel and the temperature at which you carry out the reaction. So all of these are involved in determining the thickness of the vessel, and therefore if you are going to maintain high pressure, you need to make sure that at no point of time your pressure exceeds a value which is more than your design pressure, right? And therefore you must know that if any event happens which triggers an increase of temperature or pressure of the system, you need to do a corrective action. And that corrective action is done by process control, okay, or your controller. So this is all done with the help of process control. Now, where does process dynamics come into picture? So now our process dynamics is running here side by side. Okay, so you have process dynamics. You have process dynamics, which gives an input to the process controller. Or in other words, if you want to design a controller, a successful controller, you need to understand the dynamics of the process very well. Okay, you must understand the dynamics. Now, what is the meaning and what is the purpose of studying the dynamics? What is the meaning of dynamics? We will take it up in a really great detail a little later. But let's try to understand the purpose of dynamics. Okay, so it has two purposes: to understand how fast do the changes occur. Okay, so here in the example of this reactor, ammonia synthesis reactor, suppose there is one of the pumps which continuously supplies hot fluid to the reactor to maintain its temperature. Basically, it supplies steam, right? And suppose one of the pumps fail, then what's going to happen? The temperature of your catalyst bed or temperature of the reactor will start coming down, right? Now, what's going to happen is that you need some time to switch on the, say, a substitute pump or a backup pump, and in the time this first event of failure of first pump takes place and the second pump starts pumping the steam again, there will be a time difference, and during that time your reactor would be not functioning as efficiently as you would expect it to be, right? So now you would like to know that how fast I can regain my original configuration or original state of the system, right? So this is uh, one purpose. The other purpose, which is relatively lesser trivial to understand, is to know where am I going. Now this is interesting. Let's try to understand this question from the perspective of, say, traveling between two places, right? So let's say you are in Mumbai and you want to reach Kharagpur, right? So you obviously have two modes, in fact, three modes of transportation. Let us consider uh, train and airways. So you have one which is airways, and then you have one which is by train, right? And let us try to understand this question of dynamics, these two questions, with this example. Now the question is, how fast do the changes occur? So the change is that I am myself being in Mumbai has to now I have to reach the new state, which is myself being in Kharagpur, right? So my answer is very trivial for the first question, that how fast do the changes occur? Well, it takes nearly 2 hours if I take the airways, whereas it will take nearly 24 hours, around 24 hours if I take train. So how fast do the changes take place? Well, this answer is very easy to give or easy to understand. But now the question is, where am I going? Okay, so if I take, so the question is, if I take an airplane, will I ever reach KGP? Okay, and the answer to that, interestingly, is no. I will never reach, because you know where I will reach? I will reach Kolkata. Okay, so there is no path today practically which will take me from Mumbai to Kolkata to KGP. Okay, I will end up somewhere else, and this is exactly what happens in processes as well. See, you might want to go from state 1 to state 2. You might want to go to from state 1 to state 2. You might want to maintain some temperature pressure in the system, and it changes to some other temperature and pressure, and you want to revert it back. But what would process dynamics tell me is another interesting question, or answer to this interesting question, that whether I will reach that destination or not. Is it feasible to obtain a particular state or not? Okay, and this is something apart from dynamics. I personally think this is a more important question to which is addressed by process dynamics, is that if at all it is possible to do something, or if I'm taking a particular path, where will I reach? Okay, in other words, the importance of process dynamics is to identify extremities in the system. I need to identify the extremities of the system. Okay, so what are the two extremes? For example, to take an example, what are the two extremes of the reactor system, of the reactor problem? So one extreme is that the pressure becomes the atmospheric pressure, right? And the temperature becomes somewhere around room temperature. Okay, that depends where your room is. Okay, this is one extreme. The other extreme is that the reactor blows up. Okay, and that is something which you do not want to do. Okay, this is something which we do not want, and this comes from safety. But what about this atmospheric pressure and 278 Kelvin? Again, we do not want. Why do we not want? From process demand, right? So the process demand requires us to maintain 500 bar, 650 degrees centigrade. I do not want this reactor to cool down, right? So this is something undesirable, but this is one extreme. The other extreme is that your reactor blows up, which you definitely don't want. But if there has to be a compromise, if there has to be a compromise, then you should obviously know that, okay, you have to go for the first one because safety is the foremost important thing, right? So this is why we require process dynamics. Okay, now for both process dynamics and process control, there is one more thing which comes into picture. Okay, and let me draw it here, which is called, which gives input to this process modeling. Right? So therefore you would see there are certain books, very nice books like the one by Leuben, uh, which is a book on process modeling, dynamics and control. Okay, it includes everything, because so developing a controller is the end of the process. It starts with process modeling. With the help of process model, which means mathematical equations with suitable assumptions. You should know what are the assumptions, where it would be applicable, where it would fail. So you convert your mental picture of a process to a set of mathematical equations. You analyze those equations. That analysis is called process dynamics, and then you use that process dynamics analysis to develop your process controller, right? So therefore you cannot develop a controller if you do not know or understand the dynamics well, right? And you cannot develop the dynamics if you do not have process model. Unfortunately, this is the last course for all of you. So it's not possible for me to teach you process modeling from the scratch. It's too late. So kudos to those who chose to take process modeling and simulation in the previous semester as their elective. But then we will make an arrangement. So process modeling is beyond the purview of this particular course. You will be provided with the model equations directly. I will tell you what is the motivation, how did the model equations come and so on. But we will not focus entirely on developing these model equations. That is a stage we are past that stage. But then there is something which can help us in an indirect manner. So which would help us in an indirect manner is something like this. Okay, so especially for the students of instrumentation, we will need, instead of taking mathematics to process modeling and coming via process modeling to process dynamics, we would try to understand if we can use mathematics directly, and this is equally true for students of chemical engineering as well. If we can make use of mathematics to develop and understand process dynamics directly, so as to use it for process control. So this is going to be our approach. Now, this entire approach of process dynamics, so process dynamics, can be understood in two ways. So there are two ways of understanding this. The first way, in fact, the second way, so let me write the second way first. This is something which you might have studied. The chemical engineering students must have definitely studied. Hopefully instrumentation students also have studied, is the analysis in transform domain. Transform domain. Okay, and we will take this in the later half of this course. We'll start this course by analysis in state space domain. State space domain. Okay, so these are two broad ways of understanding process dynamics. There are certain others also which have some specific applications or specific usages. But how does state space domain differ from transform domain? State space domain will help you identify every possibility. Okay, this is what I told you, that if you want to go from state 1 to state 2, if you want to go from state 1 to state 2, you would prefer to have transform domain analysis between two states. I am maintaining my temperature and pressure at state T1 P1, and I now have to go from T1 P1 to T2 P2. How do I go? How fast do I go? If I want to do this analysis, I use transform domain. But if I want to understand what every possibility, what all can happen to my system, which means the extremities, then I must use state space domain. So an ideal way of analyzing a problem is to start with a state space domain. So you know everything which can happen to your system. You know the dangerous regions of your system. You know the safe regions of your system. Now, once you have identified the safe regions of your system, then what do is, then you start applying transform domain to understand how to go from one state to the other state. Okay, so we'll start our analysis from the state space domain. So Let me start the analysis with state space representation of a dynamical system. Okay, state space representation of a dynamical system. Okay, so before I start, I want to confirm if everything till this point is audible and visible properly. Can anybody confirm me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
It's clear.
Yes, sir.
And everything is visible properly, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
sir.
And sir, some students are waiting for you to accept their request.
This is something, and this is why I asked, I gave you the, okay, I will do that. But that's why I forwarded the code so that this situation doesn't arise. Anyway, we'll try to help whoever is there. So let's try. Let's start. So we'll start the representation of a system in state space domain. But before that, we have the term dynamical system. Okay. So what is a dynamical system? So dynamical system is one which has at least one variable which varies in time. Okay, so what is a dynamical system? All the time we will be interested in dynamical systems. So what do you mean by this? We are basically dealing with systems in which there is at least one, there can be more as well, but there is at least one variable which varies in time. So let's see. Our favorite example for all the chemical engineers is always this example. So let me take the case of a tank. So I have a tank. And I have an input to the tank and I have an output from the tank. Okay. So certain level is maintained, level of liquid is maintained in the tank. Okay. So this is the liquid level problem. This is a liquid level problem. Now let's see what happens. If I supply the system with the fluid which has a flow rate of Q1 and the outlet flow rate of the liquid is Q2, right? So volumetric flow rates are Q1 and Q2, right? And if the height of or the level of the liquid is H and the tank has a constant so level of the liquid is H and the tank has a constant cross section area of A, right? Then I can write the mass conservation equation. Okay, the mass conservation equation would be A times, or let me do it the other way around. So let me write down input minus output equals accumulation, uh, accumulation fact, it can be positive or negative. So positive or negative equals, sorry, plus time rate of change, right? This is my conservation equation, right? Plus there can be generation term. So again here plus or minus generation. If there is a reaction, then generation term would be there. For our simple case, so you have a tank in which you are sending the volumetric flow rate of a liquid with a volumetric flow rate Q1, you are sending out liquid with volumetric flow rate Q2, and this is the general term, this is the general equation. Plus or minus signs will come depending upon whether you are accumulating or you're draining out, whether you are generating or you're getting consumed, your quantity is getting consumed. So now depending upon that, my input is Q1, my output is Q2 equals volumetric flow change of volume. So it will be A dH by dt, right? This is A dH by dt. In other words, I can write this dH by dt is equal to Q1 by A minus Q2 by A, right? So this is my model equation. So this is the model equation. So now the question is, what is my dynamical variable in the present case? The dynamical variable in the present case is H. So dynamical variable is H. Why is H the dynamical variable? Because depending upon how I maintain Q1 and Q2, the level of the liquid in the tank changes. So it is a function of time. Therefore, this is a system. This is a dynamical system and my dynamical variable is H, right? So now see how quickly the situation becomes complex. Okay, so my model equation again, let me write here uh, cases. So case 1, case 1, where Q1 is a constant, you send it at a constant flow rate, say equals C1. Q2 is a constant, you take the liquid out again at a constant flow rate, and this is equal to C2, right? So now I can easily transfer this equation as dx by dt equals C1 minus C2 upon A. In other words, dx by dt is a constant. Okay, so wherever possible, I will change everything to x, y, z, t, w, and so on, because it is easier for me to look these mathematical variables and analyze them rather than doing this analysis in different process domains. If you find it easier to do the analysis in process using process variables, feel free to do that. It's a matter of the comfort zone. So I'm more comfortable like this, so I'll be analyzing like this. So now where x is h, which is a function of time. Now I have three cases. Okay, I have three cases. C is greater than 0, C is less than 0, and C is equal to 0, right? Which means that I can draw this. I can analyze the dynamics of the system like this. I have x which is the level of liquid, and it varies with time. So what's going to happen is, if you solve this equation, what's going to happen is that either you will have your liquid level increasing, or it would remain constant because C is 0, or liquid level will decrease because C is greater than 0. Sorry, C is less than 0. Okay, so therefore, depending upon the conditions, you can say that what's going to happen. So my ultimate question will always be, what happens as t tends to infinity? This is something which I would always be asking myself. So I leave it up to you to analyze. Why would liquid level go on increasing? Why would liquid level remain constant? Why would liquid level come to 0? And therefore now we have extremities. And what are the extremities? The extremities are h is equal to h0, the initial height, and this will happen when input is equal to output. H is equal to 0, which means you run your tank dry, and H is equal to infinity. This is mathematically. This is mathematically, right? So this if you see this curve, x is going to infinity mathematically, but physically there will be a bound, right? And of course, this physically it would be equal to h. So this is physically. So that is the difference between a mathematician and a chemical engineer or process engineer, that you have to distinguish between the cases. So if this is h, if this is h, then you should know that you have to stop here. Okay, so this is what is going to happen. So again, we have identified the extremities, but this was a trivial example. Okay, now you see how does the situation change? How does the situation change quickly when you impose certain constraints? So now case 2. Now what you have done is that in your tank system, so here in your tank system, Q1, Q2, if it is a gravity driven flow, that means at the outlet you don't have any valve, you don't have anything, then what will happen is that Q2 will become a function of H. Okay, when the liquid level is high, the flow rate will be large. As the liquid level goes down, the flow rate will go down. Okay, Q2 will become a function of H, and then you can say that I am sending here with the pump, so Q1 is a constant. So what will happen? dH by dt equals Q1, which is constant, minus Q2, which is f of H, right? In other words, you will have to solve the equation of the form dx by dt plus f of H is a constant. And we know that we can solve this equation. This is again a first order ordinary linear equation, differential equation, and you will perhaps have to use the method of integrating factor to solve this. Okay, now you have third case, case 3. You put some kind of a valve at the outlet. You put some kind of a valve at the outlet, right? Which means F2 becomes some function, and it can be any function. For gravity driven flow, it will be only the coefficient times root h. There is only one function, and you will have to solve the equation only once. But depending upon the kind of wall you put at the outlet, you can have any kind of wall. So let us write the characteristics of that wall as g of h. Okay, and then what I can also do is I can make q1 what I can do is I can put q1 as some function of time. Okay, so for example, if you have a positive displacement pump, which doesn't operate at a really very large displacement frequency, then you will see that your output from the pump actually looks like this, which means this is the flow rate Q1 and this is time. So Q1 will be some function of time. In other words, I can write dx by dt plus g of x equals h of t. Right? So again, to understand the dynamics, I will need to look into the solution and the nature of solutions of this particular equation. Okay. Now let us make the situation a little more complex. Okay, let us make the situation a little more complex. Instead of one tank, I now have two tanks. So there is one tank upstream and then there is another tank downstream. Okay, so you have the input coming, then the output of the first tank goes as the input of the second tank, and then you have the output of the third tank, right? So you have Q1, this is H1, Q2, H2, and Q3, right? Now we have to ask ourselves a couple of questions. First question that we ask is that what are the different dynamical variables? Okay, and obviously our answer is that there are two dynamical variables, H1 and H2, right? There are two dynamical variables. Both the liquid levels H1 as well as H2 vary with time, and therefore you have the changes in the liquid. So the state of the system, let me write down the state of the system is described by a vector, okay, which is the state vector, and if you remember our notation, it would be H1, H2 transpose. Okay, so you have the state vector, and that's why we have the state space representation. Because your vectors which represent the state of the system are changing. You have different values of H1 and H2. Okay, you have different values of H1 and H2, and therefore this makes a linear vector space, and therefore this representation is called the state space representation. Okay, so now you have a vector H1, H2. And what are the governing equations? So governing equations would be dH1 by dt would be equal to multiplied by cross section area. 1 would be equal to Q1 minus Q2 and A2 dH2 by dt, which is equal to Q2 minus Q3, right? And now you can come up with all kinds of cases. You can come up with all kinds of cases that Q1, Q2, Q3 are constants. I would encourage you to write equivalent ordinary differential equations. Q1, Q2, Q3 are all constants. Then Q1 is a function of time. Q2 is a function of H1. Q3 is a function of H2. And then there is a very interesting case that Q1 is a function of time. Q2 will be a function of H1 and H2 both. This is interesting. H1 and H2 both. And Q3 is a function of H2 and so on. Okay, so there can be different cases. And you will need to then solve this equation. We will solve a problem. We will solve a very interesting problem today, and then we'll see how do we analyze the dynamics. Okay, fine. So now the question which
Sir.
becomes, yes.
Sir, here how Q2 is a function of H2, sir. They are not connected, no?
No, I have not. I have drawn a schematic. I have drawn a schematic. If when you put proper walls and you make a process instrumentation diagram, then you can analyze that. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So then the question which becomes very fundamental is that what is the order of the two tank liquid level system? Okay, and let us remind ourselves of the definition of order of a system. Order of a system is the order of the differential equation which is used to model the system, right? So now the question is what are the model equations? The model equations that we have is dH1 by dt equals 1 upon A1 Q1 minus Q2 and dH2 by dt equals 1 upon A2 Q2 minus Q3. So this is first order. This is also first order, isn't it? So what is the overall order of two tank liquid level system? So we will now define a new definition for order of a system. So order of a dynamical system is equal to the number of first order ODEs used to model the system. Okay, so although the individual model equations are first order, the overall order of the system is second order. This is second order, right? So, and you will see that if you follow the conventional definition, that order of a system is the order of the ordinary differential equation, then let us see here. You have A0, A2 d2x by dt squared plus a1 dx by dt plus a0 x equals b, right? So obviously the order of this system is 2, right? So let me write here second order. I can see straight away from here. But then let me do one thing. Let me change this representation. Let me change this representation by assuming let dx by dt equals y, right? So now what I can write is a2 dy by dt plus a1 y plus a0 x equals b. So my model equations are dx by dt equals y, dx by dt equals y, and dy by dt equals let's see, b by a2 minus a0 by a2 x minus a1 by a2 y. Again, this is first order ODE, this is first order ODE, and overall you will have second order system. Overall you have second order system. So every nth order system, if it is described by an nth order ODE, every nth order system, if it is described by an nth order ODE, can be converted to n first order ODEs. Can be converted to n first order ODEs. Okay, and that is the definition of order that we would be using now onward. Okay, so a general nth order system. So a general nth order system will be represented by what? Let me write down d x1 by dt equals a11 x1 plus a12 x2 up to a1 n xn dx2 by dt equals a21 x1 plus a22 x2 up to a2n xn, and this will go all the way up to dxn by dt equals an1 x1 plus an2 x2 plus up to plus ann xn, which is equivalent to writing d by dt of x1 x2 up to xn, x1 x2 xn equals the coefficient matrix a11 a12 a1n an1 ann. It is an n by n matrix. Again multiplied by x1 x2 xn. So this is basically an eigenvalue problem. So analysis of linear systems. At this point of time, we are dealing with linear systems. So analysis of linear systems, a lot of them are solved using the eigenvalue solutions, where x1, x2, xn, this is the state vector. This is the state vector, and you would like to know the evolution of the state vector in time. Okay. Okay, so we will then, it is 58 minutes past 11. We will take a 7 minutes break and we'll start at 5 minutes past 12. Meanwhile, if you have any doubts or any questions, please feel free to ask.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes.
Sir, in the equation you told input minus output equals accumulation. We haven't considered that time rate to change.
I
Here.
think we did right. Let me see. Where did I write that? Yeah, time rate of change. Yeah, this one.
Yes, but in our cases we haven't took that.
No, time rate of change is coming from here. See, so A into H is the volume of the system, right? So Q is the volumetric flow rate. So volume by time is the quantity. You just put a dd. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, their accumulation is nothing but time rate of change, sir.
Yeah, in this case, yes. Accumulation is time rate of change.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Sir, you are muted.
Yeah, so you can better understand this like this. Okay. Yes.
Sir, can you just explain once more state space? I
Yes.
didn't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the state space word has two words in it, state and space, right? So what is the meaning of space? It is the same space which we had studied in our previous semester in linear vector spaces or in mathematical techniques. It's a collection, right? So it's a collection of what? It's a collection of states of the system. And state of a system is explained by the properties of the system. So in this particular liquid level problem, for example, you have to identify the dynamical variable. So how would you specify? So if you are an engineer working on this particular plant, what will you say? Anybody who is working under you will report you the liquid level, right? So how are you characterizing the system? You are characterizing the system by liquid level or H. Okay. In other words, the state of this particular system is given by the dynamical variable H. Right now, is the dynamical variable fixed? Does it have just one value? No, it can have any value. Okay, so it's a collection of values which change with time, and that's why you say it as a state space. It is, again, if you look into the way we looked into the mathematical problems in the previous lectures, it is coming, H is coming from a set. Okay, and you can get one value from the other values. So therefore we call it as state space representation, where you give the state of the system as the dynamical variable, and there are so many of them. That's why it's called state space. Does that make sense?
Hello,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Can you explain once again, please, case 3?
Case 3. Which one? Let's see.
Sir, there you showed the Q1 versus T graph as sinusoidal graph. So how is it? I didn't get that point.
No, no. See, when you use a positive displacement pump, so what happens in a positive displacement pump? Okay, and there would be an inlet and there would be an outlet, right? So when this piston goes out, the liquid comes in, and then this piston comes out and then the liquid goes out. So your Q1 will look something like this. Okay, this is a sinusoidal graph. This is how the positive displacement pump works. Okay, this is the typical graph. Now, in order to avoid this sinusoidal graph, what is done is you use double acting pump. Okay, so double acting. In the double acting pump, what will happen is you will have one sinusoidal graph like this, then you will have another sinusoidal graph like this. Okay, so overall the output will look like this. Okay, does that answer your question? Does that answer your question?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I would suggest you to read a book on fluid dynamics which describes positive displacement pump. You will get this graph from there.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, you mentioned about the linear vector space, and
Yes.
you said that H1, H2 make up a linear vector space,
Yes.
and also
No, they are the vectors in a linear vector space.
yes, sir. So the different.
Now you're not audible.
Hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So different values of H1 and H2 will make up a linear vector space.
Yes.
Sir, I wanted to like understand. Are we? How did we say that it is a linear vector space, and what is the significance of linearity? Like in our IPC course also we used to linearize a non-linear system.
Yes. Yes.
So I just wanted some elaboration on that part.
Well, we'll come to linearity of the non-linear system. We'll study non-linear systems as such, as well as we will also linearize them. So here is the point. The governing equations in the kind of cases, especially we will take one case today, they are all linear equations. Okay, what is the meaning of that? See, the solutions are not linear. Nowhere does the linear vector space theory or any mathematical theory says that a linear space have to have the solutions as linear. The solutions can be sinusoidal, the solutions can be exponential, they can be wildly nonlinear. But the operator which you use to describe them are linear, which means that you can obtain one height from the other height using the linearity principle. Okay, so what is the meaning of this term that H1, H2 make elements of linear vector space? This simply means that you have H1, H2 at some given instant of time that can be expressed and in terms of H1, H2 which are present in the past. Okay, so if you know the present, you can tell me the past based upon the linearity principle. Okay, that is the meaning of this term.
Okay,
Does
sir.
that answer your question, or you
Yes,
need?
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Fine.
as of now it's clear. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, so if there are no more questions, let's proceed forward and let's take an example. Okay. So the example that we'll take today is this, which is shown here. Consider a reservoir fluid at a temperature T infinity. Okay. So let me draw it right here. So you have a reservoir, and reservoir by definition means that it's such a large body such that its temperature doesn't change. So The temperature here is T infinity. T infinity. In which an object of T0 is immersed at time T is equal to 0. So I put a sphere. And at time T is equal to 0, its temperature is T0, right? The time rate of change of temperature of the object is governed by Newton's law of cooling. That's why I said that I will not ask you to model the system. The model equations are given to you. Okay, because I don't expect instrumentation students to actually know these equations. Okay, so the time rate of change of the object is given by Newton's law of cooling, according to which the rate of change of body of temperature is proportional to the difference of body's temperature and constant surrounding temperature. See here, dt by dt is directly proportional to T minus T infinity, where T is the instantaneous temperature. Remember, T is not T0, instantaneous temperature. What's going to happen? See, if you are near a sea beach and you are cooking something and it burnt, and you are going to throw away, say, I mean, you should not, but if you are going to throw it away in the ocean, then the temperature of your body will cool down, will come down from this burning temperature to the surrounding ocean temperature. We don't expect the ocean temperature to change, right? So T is the instantaneous temperature of the system. Okay. Hence the governing equation for the system can be written as follows: dt by dt equals minus h T minus T infinity. So let us write here d T by dt equals minus h T minus T infinity. Okay, so this is the equation, this is the model equation which is available to you. So first step is already solved. If you understand what this equation means, this is okay. Now, what is oblique are the equilibrium temperatures of the system? Okay, you need to determine the equilibrium temperature of the system. Fine. Before we do that and solve this problem, let us try to understand more holistically what is the meaning of equilibrium temperature. Okay, so let us consider the simplest first order system. So let us consider the simplest first order system modeled as here, dx by dt equals ax. We all agree that this is a first order system, and this is the, as I said previously, you will see that the solution is an exponential solution. So therefore, you don't need the solution to be linear, but the operator here, which is d by dt, is simply a linear operator, right? So dx by dt equals ax. This is very similar to the equation which is given here. Dt by dt equals, you can convert this equation to this form, dx by dt equals ax. So before we analyze that problem in terms of temperature, let us look at this problem. Okay. Now you see the solution to this equation is this. Implies that x of t equals x0 e to the power at. Right? This is the solution. I am pretty sure I don't need to solve this. Everybody can solve this trivially. So x0 is the initial condition. So x0 is the initial condition. Now I want to know, if I have to analyze the dynamics of the system, dynamics analysis in state space domain, I said what is the utility of an analysis of dynamics in the state space domain. You see here, this was the utility. Every possibility, as I wrote here. Okay, you should be in a position to analyze every single possibility or what all can happen to the system, right? Let's see. It looks very simple, but you will see that it's very interesting. It's not as simple as it looks. Okay, so let me plot e to the power at x0. Okay, x0, and to keep the things simple, we'll simply assume x0 is equal to 1, unity. Okay, so x of t equals e to the power at. How does this look like? Okay, how does this look like? Well, we know, but let us plot it. So f of x equals e to the power ax. This particular software uses only x, so I will have to use it, but that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so this is the solution, right? Now, does this solution tell me every single thing about the system? Will system always look like this? Okay, so let us look at our issue. The issue is that I have a body which was at initial temperature T0, and T0 is simply 1. I mean, this is all the case of normalization. So absolute values do not matter here. So now the problem is that the moment you say that this is going to be the solution, this means that I have a sphere which I will drop in the ocean, and what is going to happen as time tends to infinity? See, this is going to happen. My temperature will become infinity, which means that my overall temperature is increasing with time. That looks pretty unrealistic, right? But as I said, the purpose of state space domain is to analyze every single possibility, right? So now see, I will do one thing. I will see the effect of A. So let me animate this. You see here, okay, and then let me zoom it in. See what's going on. What's going on is that you see here, when I have the value of A which is positive, the system blows to infinity, whereas as long as I have the value of A which is negative, my system is saturating down to 0, right? This is first important point, that as long as my A is negative, my system is decaying to a constant value, and that value happens to be 0. Whereas when my value is positive, my value of the variable diverges to infinity. So let me draw this. So let me try to draw this. This is how would we like to do it? I would try to draw it as nice as possible, but it is a little difficult to do those things here. So let me try in a couple of ways. Okay, so this is X, and this is T. This is T, right? So now what's going on? The moment A is greater than 0, your solutions blow up, right? Which means you have a situation like this. Okay, now there is a problem. Is this the only line? No, this is not the only line. You have a collection of lines for different values of A's. If you change the value of A, this will change, right? I'm emphasizing that I'm looking at every single possibility. So this is for A1, A2, A3, A4, and I can write A4 greater than A3 greater than A2 greater than A1, right? What about here? Here the lines would look like this, right? The lines would look like this. Again, for different values of A. So this would be A4, this would be A3, this would be A2, this would be A1, right? Now, have I considered every single possibility? The answer is no. The answer is no. So let me write here. Let me put the initial condition, right? Let me put the initial condition B. I will just replay it. Nothing changes. But then let me do one thing. Let me make this negative. Okay. And then what you see here is that it never comes up. It never comes up. Again, I have a possibility when the initial condition is negative. I have a possibility when the initial condition is negative, and therefore what I see is that I do not simply have this much, rather I have these also as the solutions. These also as the solutions, right? And similarly, these would be the solutions. So I see
Sir,
these.
they'll pass through the same initial condition, like
No,
same point.
no. These are all different initial conditions. This is one initial condition, this is second initial condition, this is third, and so on. You can do one thing, you can make them pass through same initial condition, and in that case what will happen is that the slopes will become different. So let me draw here. If you are making them pass through same initial condition, in this particular figure the initial conditions are different. If you have to make same initial condition, then they will look like this. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not forcing the initial condition to be the same here. Okay, so these are all different initial conditions. So this is one case, this is other case. So this is A greater than 0, this is A less than 0. Right? Now, how is it relevant to my particular problem? Before we go to our particular problem, let us give some technical names to what we are doing. Okay. This is called a phase line. Okay, every line is a phase line. Okay, every curve that you draw is the phase line, and this together is called the phase portrait. This together will be called the phase portrait. Okay, so how would the phase portrait of dx by dt equals ax look like? Well, it looks like this. Now this has given you every single possibility. Now when it comes to the physical system, you would know that okay, time cannot be negative. So I do not need to bother about the negative axis of time. Fine, but I should know, right? I should know what all are the possibilities, and then I can discard a particular possibility. Now, if I'm modeling my system in absolute temperatures in Kelvin, I know that the temperature cannot be negative, so my x cannot go in the negative direction. So I should bother only about positive time, and I should bother only about positive temperature or positive x. That can be decided later. But before you decide that, you should know what happens. So this is the phase portrait. Now you see, when you start with x is equal to greater than 0, so let me ask you one thing. So let us ask ourselves some questions. What is the effect of A on the dynamics of the system? Right? And the answer is large A, quicker dynamics. Let's see it quickly here. So as my A goes on decreasing for a given value, it comes down fast or rises up fast. Okay, whether it is positive or negative does not matter, it is only the magnitude. If the magnitude is large, the change will take place fast. Fine, this is not something very interesting. The interesting thing is the next question. What is the fate of the system? What is the fate of the system? Now you see, I will confine the value of A to a range of 1 to 2, or say 1 to 100. 1 to 100. Right? I'm doing this, and let us focus on this portion. Okay. Okay, let me make it a smaller value because it will blow up so fast that we will not be able to see it. Between 0.1 and 1. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so that we should be able to see it. Now you see, when I start animating it, what you will see is that the system blows to infinity, irrespective of what the value of A is. The system always blows up to infinity. When the value of A is small, it takes a long time. When the value of A is large, it takes a small time. Similarly, let me now make it between minus 0.1 to minus 1. Okay. Why is it giving an error? Okay, minus 1 to minus 0.1. Fine. Okay, probably that was the reason. Okay, so then in both the cases, again, I will animate this, and what you will see is the end here remains the same. All which happens is that the time to reach this becomes small or more, which means that now if I want to know what happens, or in other words, what happens to the system as t tends to infinity. See this, that is the meaning of the fate, right? What is the fate of the system? What happens to the system as t tends to infinity? The answer is if A is greater than 0, then x tends to infinity. If A is less than 0, then x tends to 0, irrespective of magnitude of A. Doesn't matter whether A is small or large. At time t tends to infinity, if A is greater than 0, say your reactor will blow up now or after 10 days, it does not matter, but it will blow up. That is what it's telling you. Okay, or reactor is going to cool down to room temperature. Whether it happens now or after 10 days doesn't matter, it is going to cool down. This is what we want to know, right? But what happens at A is equal to 0? At A is equal to 0. Okay, see, you will observe that at none of the examples I used A is equal to 0. I used 0.1, but I never used A is equal to 0. So what is the solution for A is equal to 0? So let me write here. Okay, so what happens when A is equal to 0? You see, nothing changes, right? So let me make it Let me do one thing from minus 0.1 to 0.1 via 0 to 0.1. So it will go to 0. Now you see what happens. It was decaying, everything was decaying, and then suddenly it starts blowing up. About a very small difference. See, this small difference does not matter, but at the end of the day, you are going to blow up in this case, or at the end of the day, you are going to cool down to 0 at this case, right? Which means that A is equal to 0 is a special value. A is equal to 0 is a special value, and the technical term for that is that the system has bifurcation at A is equal to 0. What is the meaning of bifurcation? Completely different behavior. In this case, you blow to infinity. Here you become 0. Completely different behavior, just at about A is equal to 0. And therefore, you say that your system has a bifurcation at A is equal to 0. Right? Now, finally, what is the meaning of equilibrium? You see here. Now let me draw one vertical line. And this is perhaps one of the most important parts of the phase portrait. I'm drawing it here. You should draw it on the right hand side. I don't have. Let me see if I can do it. Let me not waste time on that. So this is the point. This is the point, right? You see, in this case, all the solutions are coming to this point. From this side also, the solutions are coming to this point. And in this case, the solutions are diverging from this point. The solutions are going away. Here also the solutions are going away. So these are called source solutions, and these are called sink solutions. One is called the source solution, the other one is called the sink solution. But what about this point? This point is called the equilibrium solution. This point is called the equilibrium solution. So the solutions will converge to equilibrium solution, and in that case they will be called stable. The equilibrium solution will be called stable, or the solutions will diverge away from the source solution, in which case the equilibrium solution will be called unstable. Fine. Now this puts us in a position to solve our problem. So the first problem, what is and or are the equilibrium solutions? Well, it's very easy. You simply substitute this as 0. At equilibrium, the dynamics cease. So this is equal to 0, which means T is equal to T infinity. And this is, see here, the reservoir temperature. See there, that's where you come to the physical domain away from the mathematical domain. Mathematics gives you the correct answer. That's a different point. But then what's going to happen if you're going to drop a hot sphere in ocean? Well, ultimately the system temperature is going to become equal to the temperature of the ocean, right? That is by the definition of a reservoir. The temperature of the reservoir doesn't change. So the equilibrium temperature is T infinity. Fine. Now solve that equation analytically to determine the time evolution of the system and see if you get the same answer for equilibrium. Fine, we can do this. Okay, what happened? This is strange. I don't know why did it crash. Now, restore file. But this is not the file we wanted to restore. Okay, it's bad luck, nothing can be done. So you'll not get, you'll have to look into the video. So now, so the solution, so the equation was dH by dt, sorry, dt by dt equals minus h t minus t infinity, right? This was the equation. Is that the equation? Yes. Okay, minus h t minus infinity. So the equilibrium temperature is T infinity. Solve the equation analytically. So this is not very difficult. Let T minus T infinity be equal to T star, which means dt star by dt equals minus h T star, which means T star equals T0, some initial condition, times e to the power minus h t, right? And when you put initial condition and revert the definition back, what you will get is a simple expression, which means that t equals, so you will put, so this will become T infinity plus T0 minus T infinity e to the power minus ht. Okay, so this is the solution that you get, but we are not, I'm not testing your ability to solve this equation. I am putting it quickly because I know you will be able to solve this. What we are interested in knowing is the phase portrait of this system. How does the phase portrait look like? Okay, so let us write it as f of x equals a plus b minus a e to the power minus c x, right? So this is what we want to know. So f of x equals a plus b minus a e to the power minus c x. Okay, fine. So now let's see the effect of, yes, looks like we are there. What is the meaning of the term T0? T0 is the initial condition. So B is the initial condition, right? So see here, correct? You see, you just monitor what's going on here, what's going on here. You will see B is the initial condition, right? This is the effect of B, fine. And if the initial condition is lesser than the equilibrium temperature, so it is going up. What is the meaning of this statement, of this observation? That if the temperature of your sphere is lesser than reservoir temperature, the temperature will rise. If the temperature is more, then the temperature will, then the sphere will cool down. Physically makes sense. Effect of C, how quickly it settles down. This we know, we have studied. Effect of A, which is the equilibrium condition. You see here, equilibrium condition, right? And it is always at time t tends to infinity, it goes down away. Okay, so therefore our portrait for the present case, how would it look like? It would look something like this. So this is T, this is T, this is T, this is T. So now I have a condition here. And what is this? This is T infinity. T equilibrium equals T infinity. T equilibrium, which is equal to T infinity. Right? And then what's going to happen? I can very well see the solutions. The solutions will look like this. Or they will look like this. Okay, these are the two solutions. So this is for h greater than 0 because you have a negative sign in front of this. You see here, this is a negative sign. Okay, so this is h greater than 0. This is for h less than 0, right? So this is the phase portrait. Now what you see, what has been asked is, do you check if you get the same answer for equilibrium states? Okay, so if you see here, and I have drawn this phase portrait here, you will get the same equilibrium solution as you got by simply substituting dt by det equals 0. You get the same answer. Fine. Next, this is very interesting. Part C. Develop the phase portrait for the system using solutions obtained from B that we have developed. Part D. Without explicitly solving the governing equation, develop the phase portrait. This is something which we are really interested in this particular course. Okay, so here is the thing. You have dt by dt equals minus h t minus t infinity. The solution was t of t equals t infinity plus t0 minus t infinity e to the power minus ht. And what did I do? I substituted this in this formula in this particular software. Software is for ease of visualization. I assume that you know how to analyze any mathematical function to see how it would behave, right? So for the ease of visualization, I'm doing this. I'm definitely expecting you that you know at least this much of mathematics to draw the graph directly. So we drew this, but you know, you do not need this. So not required. Without doing this, you can actually develop the phase portrait, which would look exactly the same, right? Let's see the steps. So I'll start from here. And you will see how wonderfully we reach the exact same phase portrait. So the first thing that I need to do is this. So this is t, this is small t, this is capital T, this is small t. First thing which I need is equilibrium solution. So I substitute this equal to 0 implies that t equilibrium is t infinity. So I'll simply mark the equilibrium solutions on my phase portrait. I'm putting it as positive. You can, you can put it as positive, negative. It does not matter. It will not matter. Okay, fine. Now, from here, how do I reach here? How do I reach here? Well, it's very simple. The equilibrium solutions are the solutions which are asymptotic solutions. So let me write down. Equilibrium solutions are asymptotic solutions as t tends to infinity or t tends to minus infinity. Okay, so your system will have definitely this solution either here or here at one of the two places, right? Fine. So I know that everything will either converge to this value or they will diverge from this value. Fine. So what do? I look at this equation. Okay. So when t is greater than t infinity, dh by dt, so will be negative, right? So because h is positive for h greater than 0, this is positive, so overall we will negative. So for h greater than 0, dh by dt is negative. So how will I draw a line which has a negative slope which has a
Sir, I
negative
think
slope.
dt
Okay.
by dt.
So yes, fine. This is dt by dt, correct. So how do I draw a line which has a negative slope and somehow it should end up here? Well, you know, it would look like this, right? So if I have one line, I can draw other lines too. All the lines have negative slope. And then when t is less than t infinity, dt by, okay. So I think we drew it the other way around. T is greater than t infinity, negative slope. So it should be like this. It should be like this, right? Little ugly. Let me draw it properly. Fine. And then when t is less than t infinity, dt by dt will be, so this is negative, this is negative, so this is negative, this is negative, so it will become positive, greater than 0, right? So positive slope which has to ultimately come to this point, so you will draw this, right? Let me go here, h greater than 0, h greater than 0. Why did this happen? It is converging, h greater than 0. Is it the same thing? And yes, it is the same thing. Okay, h greater than 0, converging, and h greater than 0, converging. Now h less than 0, what will happen when t is greater than t infinity? The sign will, the h sign is changed. So therefore you will have a term which will have dt by dt, which should be greater than 0. So how do I draw a curve? How do I draw a curve which has a gradient which is positive, which has a gradient which is positive, and it should ultimately be here. So I draw it like this. And therefore conversely I draw it like this. Right?
Sir,
Huh.
excuse me.
Yes.
H is heat transfer coefficient. Sir,
Yes,
what
H is heat transfer coefficient. Sorry?
Sir, it is heat transfer coefficient.
Yes, H is heat transfer coefficient. Yes.
So, sir, it could be negative.
No, it won't be. We'll come to that point. We'll come to that point.
Okay.
So now I will draw, please do not draw this on the other side. There is not the convention, but due to space constraint, I'm drawing it like this. So this is the sink solution. This is the source solution. So this is the complete phase portrait. This is the complete phase portrait. Now let us ask ourselves the question which somebody was asking now. Time cannot be negative. So out of these phase portraits, I will discard negative times, fine. And then I know that heat transfer coefficient has always got to be positive. So therefore I know that this is going to be the only phase portrait. So what will not be there in my phase portrait is this region. So let me discard the regions. So this region won't be there. This region won't be there. This region won't be there. Fine. That's a matter of physical analysis, which I will do later. But what I understand by this method is that if my initial temperature is higher than the equilibrium temperature, then my solutions will sink down to equilibrium temperature. If my initial temperature is lower than the equilibrium temperature, then my temperature will rise to the equilibrium temperature. And that is the whole point of this sink. Okay. So this is what, and we have got this phase portrait absolutely the same thing without solving the equation. Okay, so you don't need to actually solve the equation. Fine. So what are the equilibrium temperatures? Part 1. Fine, we have found them, t equal to infinity. We have solved it analytically. We have developed the phase portrait by solution, and we have developed the portrait using the equation directly. Now analyze the solutions and phase portrait for initial conditions t greater than T0. We saw this. If initial temperature is lesser than the equilibrium temperature, the solutions or the temperature will rise. T greater than T0, T0 greater than greater than T infinity, you know that the system will cool down. T infinity equal to T0, you know that's the equilibrium solution, so nothing will change with time. Fine. Then study the effect of parameter h. This is what we did in the phase portrait. H greater than 0, h less than 0, and h is equal to 0, you have a bifurcation. Okay, so that's the next question. Comment upon the bifurcation in the system. The system will have a bifurcation at h is equal to 0. Okay. Finally, this final part, I'm leaving this up to you for the exercise. Consider a case where the reservoir temperature is a function of the time. Okay, so what was our model equation? dH by dt equals minus h t minus t infinity. Now, t infinity is a function of time. How? Linear decay. So what is the equation for linear decay? T infinity will be equal to a minus bt. Right? So dH by dt equals or plus ht equals a minus bt. Please solve this equation and analyze everything which we did till now from the beginning. Linear rise, T infinity will be equal to a plus bt. This is the equation for linear rise with time. Okay. Exponential decay, T infinity equals a e to the power minus bt. An exponential rise, T infinity equals a e to the power plus bt. So we'll substitute all of this. I mean, it has to be multiplied by h. And what is this equation of the form? This equation is of the form dx by dt plus f of x equals g of t. Again, solution by integrating factor. You can solve this, but you don't have to stop there. Everything which we did here, it's like the exercise that you will have to repeat again for these 4 parts. Okay. So this was all about the first order dynamics. In the next lecture, we will take up higher order dynamics. If anybody has any doubt or any question, please feel free to ask. We are done for today's lecture. Any doubt or any question?
So can you please define phase portrait? So it is like the plot of all possible combinations of the parameters that I have in my system.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, sir.
So it's the collection of solutions to your ordinary differential equation, which represent every single possibility. One line will correspond to one solution corresponding to one particular condition of the system, and a collection of lines will give you phase portrait.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other doubt or question? Let me also write down, since we are here, write down the names of books which you might find good to read. The first one which I would recommend is by, I think it is BA. It's either A or E. I will have to check. Beckett. The second one is by Ogunaike. And the third one is our all-time favorite by Stephanopoulos. We will actually not study Stephanopoulos, but it's always a nice book to refer to for certain topics. Okay. So I would like you to at least browse through these books once. All of these are books on process dynamics and control specifically. So if you happen to get any chance, just go through them once. And every lecture we'll be solving one problem. The problem will be huge, so we'll be solving only one problem, but that particular one problem will cover all the concepts. Yes, next, or we are done?
So
Yes.
when we were drawing the phase portrait, so when we applied the physical conditions, do we draw the bottom half of the positive side when h is greater than 0?
So see, there are two problems. First is a mathematical problem and second is a physical problem. Okay. I would always suggest you first solve the mathematical problem to know every single possibility that exists. Then you invoke your engineering skills to discard the physically irrelevant portion. Okay.
Yes, sir. So since our t infinity is like greater than 0, so there is a like slight region where time is greater than 0 and t is less than t infinity. Do we draw that?
Yes, you will draw. You'll draw.
Okay.
Yeah. And secondly, remember, physically when you are doing anything in this, doing this analysis, is why it is important to do state space analysis and know all the possibilities. When you are physically doing this, you can simply say that, okay, height transfer coefficient is always positive. I don't need to bother about the other conditions. But when you implement this in a control system, basically what you are doing is you're asking your computer to change the parameters. What if the computer changes your parameters such that it becomes a disaster? So you have to train your computer also to look into correct set of parameters. Right? That's the whole point of doing the controller tuning. So it may so happen that nature won't do it, but your computer would do it. And that is something which we should absolutely know what are all the possibilities. Okay, next question. Good. Okay, we'll see a much more interesting case of higher order systems in the next class. Thank you.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes,
sir,
go ahead.
Sir, at A is equal to 0, you told its system has bifurcation point. Sir,
Yes.
What does exactly mean by bifurcation point?
Okay, so what is the meaning of bifurcation? Bifurcation means to split into two. Okay, so anything which splits into two, this particular thing is called bifurcation. Bi means two, right? So here what is happening is, okay, it's gone. We'll have to. I will quickly draw. So what's happening is, in one case this is for a greater than 0, and in the other case this is a less than 0. So the system is splitting into two different behaviors. One behavior is that your x is going to infinity, the other behavior is x is going to 0. So that's what is called bifurcation.
Okay. And sir, one small request is also.
Yes.
Sir, can you send the PDF of which you have taught today?
It crashed, so not today. Whenever it doesn't crash, I will do it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
I had made it a point to send it, but it never happens. It crashed today, so I don't know. We'll try.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else? If everything is done, we are done for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.